What is up, everybody? My name is Steven, and I'm coming at you from Freeze Peach Gaming. Today we're talking about the first episode, really, of House of the Dragon, because the first episode is all that's out right now. This is an article, which we'll hop into in just a second, from one of the stars of the show, not the lead, but he's in the show. He has a pretty prominent role. Just to give you like a quick overview of my feelings on the first episode, because I don't know, I've been thinking about doing a review on it, but I probably won't. I got enough on my plate right now, and I just wanted to come back and make another video for this channel, Freeze Peach Gaming, because I haven't made an actual video here for far too long, and I felt like I owed you guys something. So I felt inspired to do this one. But my overall views of the first episode of House of the Dragon. I want to say Game of Thrones, but it's not Game of Thrones, it's just called House of the Dragon. It was okay. It wasn't the worst thing I've seen, by far, in a long time. I thought that the acting was good. I thought that the CGI was good. I feel like the writing is where it seems to fall apart a little bit, and mostly what bothered me is there's a few member berries in there. Nothing quite as egregious as, say, like, even a movie that I thought was pretty good, not great, but pretty good, Top Gun Maverick. I'll say it's not quite as filled with member berries as Top Gun Maverick, but it has a few things. Like, remember when we first introduced you to Arya, and she's like this kick-ass young girl who doesn't want to be doesn't want to be a baby-making machine. She wants to be a knight and learn how to fight, and we're gonna lead you to that later on in the show, or the book series, really. They do that again, but it's like, this time she has white hair and she's a princess! And she literally says, like, I don't want to just sit here and make babies. I want to be a knight and go fight with the men. Like, she literally says that. So it definitely has a couple of small, not super egregious, but they're there, a couple of small, like, woke points that they throw in there to... I guess they're just trying to hit checklists, and you'll see in this article, which we'll hop over to now, a lot of this stuff does just come down to them hitting checklists. So, here's the article from Variety. House of the Dragon star Steve Toussaint slams racist viewers. Sorry, I got a cat hair right on my nose. I was just shoving my face into the cat, and oh, there's so much hair left behind. Alright, that's better. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Unprofessional, I know, but man, it was bothering me. House of the Dragon star Steve Toussaint slams racist viewers. They're happy with a dragon flying, but not a rich black guy. Now, they're editorializing a bit of what he said there, but I think the sentiment is overall true. So it's this guy right here. He plays a fairly prominent role. He's one of the members of the King's Council. Can't remember, do they call it like the Iron Council or something? I can't remember, but it's the King's Council, essentially. House of the Dragon star Steve Toussaint, who plays Lord Corlys Velaryon, aka the Sea Snake, on the series, slammed viewers of the Game of Thrones prequel who took issue with his casting. It seems to be very hard for people to swallow, Toussaint said in an interview with Men's Health. They are happy with a flying dragon, they're happy with white hair and violet-colored eyes, but a rich black guy, that's beyond the pale. That's not the issue that people are taking with it. It's not the fact that it's a rich black guy, it's the fact that we're supposed to be in Westeros only now, right? We're not off in Essos. That's what Game of Thrones was able to do very well when they portrayed the shows. You know, they're trying to give a realistic fantasy portrayal of medieval Europe. Yes, there's magic, there's dragons, there's all that stuff, but it's supposed to be a predominantly realistic portrayal of medieval Europe, to where you even go, when you go toward Dorne, you have more swarthy people who would be more, Mediterranean, the Greek or even Italian-looking people. And it all makes sense because of the layout of the world, and it's supposed to be an allegory for the real world. And then you go off to Essos, which is more of the East Indian, African continent, more West Indian, the Indies, I'll say, or even a bit of Africa in there as well. So you have darker people, you have different cultures, and it's a very interesting portrayal of both sides that you get, but it works within the context of each. Now, when you see a white guy off in Essos, a particularly European-looking white guy, not just one of the more lighter-skinned Semitic people like you see over in places in the Middle East. It's pretty common, but they still tend to have darker hair and more like amber, if anything, eyes, if not just darker eyes. But when you see an actual white guy with like blonde hair and blue eyes, it's because he's actually from Westeros. It's Jorah Mormont. So it's not the problem that it's a rich black guy, right? It's the fact that it's a rich black guy in Westeros. That's the part that's throwing us off, and as we get deeper into it, you'll see there's some additional problems. Sorry, I'm trying to pet a cat out of the way. There you go, kitty. Yeah, you just knocked that off. That's fine. I like that being on the floor. Thank you, kitty. While Lord Corlys is never explicitly described as white in George R. R. Martin's Fire and Blood, which from House of the Dragon is adapted, many imagined the character to be fair-skinned because his ancestors are Valyrian and his hair is described in the books as Targaryen white blonde. One moment. Had to fix a problem for the kitty there. She was going to be a dick. So, okay, I can understand. His family does come from Valyria, and we know that this is in Essos. And I did always find it kind of odd that the Targaryen people were so fair-skinned in, this part of the world. Perhaps there's some explanation for why they are so fair-skinned, and I always thought it had to do with the egregious amount of inbreeding that took place in Valyria. So I guess there is an argument there that his family would be coming from Essos, and so I guess something that I had thought of was, even if these people were to be predominantly dark-skinned, or predominantly light-skinned in Valyria, you would think that the majority of the society would be at least somewhat fair-skinned. Maybe a couple of swarthy, somewhat darker-skinned people here or there, but this guy is dark. He is D-A-R-K dark. And it just, I don't know, it seems weird. Seems a little bit off. Could be wrong. Perhaps, here's a bit of a theory here. Perhaps the Targaryens were more like the Egyptian dynasties, which were really of Greek descent. So you look at Cleopatra, she was actually of Macedonian descent, so she would have been a bit more fair-skinned than you would expect some of the other people in Northern Africa to be, even though they're not particularly dark in Northern Africa. But what he says is, he doesn't say that. See, that's me trying to be fair to the lore of the story. You'll see what he says here. However, as Toussaint notes, those who feel his casting is unrealistic have no problem buying into the existence of dragons and magic, not to mention that the screen adaptation often strays from matching exact character descriptions in the source material. It's not that it has to be an exact, character description, it's just sometimes we find these things to be unrealistic, and you can't blame fans when they've already been built up to a particular expectation, especially from shows like, say, The Witcher, where there's a lot of dark-skinned people in The Witcher, and it doesn't really make sense because it's supposed to be based on medieval Poland. Once again, we're taking medieval European tales. They're not exactly myths or legends, but tales, because these are all modern. And we're turning them into this Americanized mixing pot. I think it's we're really pushing what we expect to see in America off onto other cultures, and it's just not exactly realistic. So you can't blame people for having that particular expectation. What has been wonderful is for every exotic person that has somehow found their way into my timeline. What has been wonderful is for every toxic person that has somehow found their way into my timeline. There have been so many others who have been so supportive and said, like, oh my god, I can't wait, this is going to be great. Toussaint added, even when we're doing certain scenes, there will be supporting artists who will come up and go, it's great to have this representation, and that's what it comes down to. It's all about representation. It's not about trying to tell a good story. It's not about trying to find the best actor. If they had said he was the best actor that we could find for this role, and we decided that we could put it into the lore because the Valyrians come from Essos, and there's a lot of dark-skinned people in Essos, if that was what they had said, they could have shut down all of these arguments, but that's not what they said. They say it's about representation, which means that this guy right here is fine with being tokenized, because that's what representation is. It's pure tokenization. It's we're going to take somebody who is of a perceived minority or a perceived oppressed class, and we're going to put them at the forefront, not because they're the best, but because we want to get POBs. We want a pat on the back, and we want all of the praise coming from all of these people who are saying that representation is so important. That's the issue here, and they're tokenizing, and it very much follows the soft bigotry of low expectations. They're not saying he's the best choice for the role. In fact, I think he was a pretty good actor. I thought he did a good job playing his character. He's very much has this weird balance that's going on in the show for his character, because his wife, who is one of the Targaryens, she is fair-skinned with light hair, and she looks Targaryen. But his wife, who's one of the Targaryens, had the opportunity to be queen at one point in time, but instead her cousin was chosen because they didn't want to have a female ruler at the time. The previous king decided it would throw the entire realm into too much chaos to suddenly have a female ruler when there's been hundreds of years of precedent that it's always a male ruler. So, I thought he was a good actor of playing sort of his alliances are already split, and they show that a little bit in the first episode when he's saying that he's giving support to the king's brother after the king's brother has committed what could be considered an atrocity. Certainly heavy-handed policing, to say the least. But he sort of plays both sides a little bit, to where he supports the king's brother in one breath, and then in the next breath, he supports somebody else for being the heir apparent. And you can see him play that very well. He's this, he's constantly really looking, it seems like he's constantly really looking out for whatever is going to keep his family the safest, because he knows they're already living on a knife's edge, because they do technically have a claim to the throne, but they don't want to have family infighting. So it's his job to maintain this interesting balance there. And I thought he did a good job. So I don't think that he needs to rest on the laurels of, I'm here for representation, aren't I great? Because I really think it makes it seem as if they're giving him a handout by doing this. It's not making it seem as if he earned his place by saying this is for representation and not because he was a good actor. I honestly think he was a good actor. Like I said, I thought the acting was good. I think the writing is where they have issues. And I will say it is also kind of odd, because when you see in the tournament scene, there's not many, but there are a few other dark-skinned people in the crowd in the tournament in King's Landing, which when we go, 200 years into the future, 175 years into the future, something like that, there's just white people there now, and it's kind of like in Lord of the Rings, like, well, are we supposed to just assume that there was some sort of genocide between now and then? Now, I'll say in Lord of the Rings, a genocide, not Lord of the Rings, sorry, in Game of Thrones, not in Lord of the Rings, but in Game of Thrones, a potential, ethnic cleansing genocide within either side, Essos or Westeros, is not entirely out of the question. There's some horrible shit that happens in that show. But those are all of my thoughts on that for today, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. You can also catch me on my second channel, Blast from the Past Reviews, which will be linked in the description below and the pinned comment. Please go check that out. Fridays at 8:30 Eastern, you can find myself and Megan Lee of the New Reviews doing a review on a movie. We tend to go through just about the whole thing. We actually pull it up on the screen, talk about it, and try to do a nice dive and analysis of the film. So please come by and check that out. As for that, everybody, we'll see how House of the Dragon goes. Overall, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I wasn't expecting much going into it, and I think my expectations were met. So, we'll see where it goes. It's better than most of the things I've seen recently, but that's not saying much. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day. Never be afraid to speak your mind.